I want to know how we get the message across to a wider group of people of why there is such a problem with the deficit, why a growing deficit makes it even worse, and why something needs to be done about it. I think there's too much acceptance that the government can just, like, whenever there's a problem, well, the government should just pay to fix that.
Tax the rich.
Tax the rich. What? Yeah, but in the US, I think is it 70% of the tax comes from the top 1% or 5% or something ridiculous. There's like stats like that as well. Like, we know you can't. There's a limitation to. Like, people just need to know the truth that you can't just tax the rich because you hit that. If you tax too high, they'll just leave the country or find ways to hide it. So there is a limit to how much you can tax people. There still isn't enough revenue that comes from that. The truth is the government just has to spend less.
Yeah.
They just have to. It just has to be that way. We all have to work harder and they have to spend less.
Even under Thatcher and Reagan, who were both great champions of balanced books and reduced fiscal spending, and they took on the unions and they changed the narrative and blah, 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 government still grew under Thatcher and Reagan.
But there were periods of surplus.
It just didn't grow by this same rate. I think the last person to run a surplus was Clinton in the late 90s.
In the UK, can you have a look?
It was 2000, 2001 in the UK was the last time we had a...
So is that Blair? Or was that
Blair and Brown.
Blair and Brown.
The last chancellor who reduced tax, like, one of the problems with the tax code is just the sheer complexity of it. And Nigel Lawson, when he was chancellor, made a thing with each budget he was going to remove a tax. And I think he was chancellor for 6 years, so he removed 6 different taxes.
Nice.
And he was the last guy to not only reduce taxes, but reduce the tax code. And since then, the thing has just got more and more bloated, and they'll do this tax, but then there's this exemption for this person and this subsidy for this person, all that. And it just makes the whole thing. The tax code is now something like 15 times the length of the Bible. I promise you, nobody's read it. But the longer it is and the bigger it is, all you do is create the more loopholes. And then it's only people with deep pockets, rich corporations or rich individuals who have who can find the loopholes. And in any case, the idea of a national system with national borders is kind of irrelevant in this new globalized world that is the internet. Because, where is Google located? Exactly.
Yeah, well, but you know what? I just think better government would find a way to tax these people.
Well, land value tax is the answer to all of that. But then what they'll do is they'll introduce land value tax on top of all the other taxes. The system is designed as it is. The democratic system, vote for us, we're going to give you this, that, and the other, is set up so that government will the state will inevitably grow. Because it's literally vote for us, we are going to do more to fix this, that, and the other problem. Nobody gets elected going, vote for me, we're going to give you less. Doesn't work.
So essentially we need revolution.
Yep.
Bitcoin, a peaceful revolution.
Yep.
And I'm always trying to think, how do
Don't try and make it illegal.
How do I try and communicate these people without sounding like a conspiracy nutter? Because I think they do think I'm a nutter. When I'm trying to explain to my friends, like, this is I'm not making this up. You can go on the government's website. Here are the facts. This is the national debt. This is the increasing payments on that debt. This is the increasing spend. These are the implications. I'm not making any. This is all true. This is what we have to do to be able to pay it back. If we don't pay it back, these are the implications. I actually think it's a time where the country came together during World War II to protect the children. It's essentially the same now because it's our children we're fucking. Like, I look at my children and I'm like...
I'm just leave. I just tell them to go.
What? So they're not going to be able to afford a house. Just zero chance to be able to afford a house unless I help them. So that they're going to be in a situation where there's...
Going to be starting a family later in life. They can't afford to have as many kids, and then there's a shortage of labor, so they import more labor from abroad, and then the national identity gets eroded and destroyed, and we're in the vortex.
It is all fucked, but there is a way out, and the way out is to stop spending so much. Everyone has to, as a nation, we have to work harder, and the country has to spend. The government has to spend less. To the point where I was even thinking, do you know what?
They tried it. Austerity, and they called it austerity, but it wasn't even austerity because spending still rose, but they still called it austerity, and it got absolutely pilloried as being heartless and horrible and all the rest of it, and now nobody's going to mention the word austerity again.
I have a very simple rule that would solve this. What happens if you stop paying your mortgage?
I'm guessing you lose your home.
You lose your home. So you run a budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you go into deficit and maybe borrow some. probably have to speak to your wife, and sometimes most of the time you probably run a surplus. But every single person in this room has to run a budget, and we can't have infinite debt because we end up bankrupt. I think any government that runs a deficit is immediately put up for re-election. At the point they run a deficit, you have to be put up for re-election. So you have to run a balanced books.
Maybe. I mean,
Crazy
it's a nice
idea.
idea. Well, it's a nice idea, Peter, and if somebody proposed it, I'd vote for it, 100%, and probably a lot of people would vote for it. But the problem is, if you don't pay your mortgage, you'd lose your house. The rules for government are not the same.
But they should
If we
be.
could all run up endless deficits, then many of us would.
Of course we would. And this is
Of course they should, but they don't, and they never have.
But people don't know what they're sleepwalking into, and I'm like, how do I get this message to as many people as possible? Like,
I've spent my life trying to get this message out to people. I've written books about it. I do endless blogs and vlogs and things, and you're seeing a jaded man who's just like, you can rail against it, you can suggest ideas, you can nudge, you can hopefully some of your ideas will catch on. I wrote my daylight robbery, it was handed out to every politician in the IEA, gave it to every politician in the cabinet last Christmas. I've written the Bitcoin book, I've endlessly going on. But what it all comes down to, Peter, is there are 2 zero patients in all of this, and in fact there's 1 zero patient. And fix the money. Do you know what I mean by a zero patient?
Yes.
I'll just explain it in case anyone doesn't know. So in a zombie film, when they're trying to eradicate the virus, they have to get to the zero patient, which is where the virus started. And either the zero patient or patient zero, either it's got the antidote, or if they kill the patient zero, then they rid themselves of the virus. It's like a trope of some zombie films and other kinds of films. Patient zero is the system of tax and the system of money. When government has the power to print money, when one body in a society has the power to print money at no cost to itself, to create money at no cost to... Let me rephrase that. When one body in a society has the power to create money at no cost to itself, when everyone else has to earn it, it is inevitable that that body will grow disproportionately large. And while money is the issuance of government, that is the system we run under. Once upon a time when gold was money, it wasn't so easy. You need an independent money system. That's one thing. The other thing is you design a society by the way that you tax it. It really is that simple. You determine a society's destiny. And at the moment, we tax labor very, very heavily. Now, if you're a young guy starting out in the world, all you have is your labor. That's literally all you have. But because we tax it so heavily, it's very hard for that guy to catch up with the guy who's got money, because he's constantly having 45 or 50% or whatever percentage of his labor taken from of his earnings. So it's very hard to progress. And then simultaneously, the money he's paid in is losing its purchasing power all the time. So he faces the double whammy of income tax and inflation. So that you have to do away with all of that and tax something else and not labor. But while income tax is the 50% of government revenue worldwide derives from income tax in one form or another, it's just not going to happen because it's the government's biggest source of revenue. So I'm of the view that you just need to protect yourself, look after number one, vote with your feet if necessary, and try and do what you can and put your own little house in order. But you cannot fix the system. The system just has to implode. And the law of history is that all fiat systems die sooner or later, and ours just seems to be dying this slow 100-year death. And whether you measure it from 1914 when we came off the gold standard or 1971 when the States did, but you just see this incremental. And, the way that Osborne tried to deal with it when he was Chancellor was simultaneously they were going to inflate away some of the debt, they were going to have a little bit of growth, and they were going to rely on increased tax revenue. And that was the sort of the three-pronged way they were going to do it. It's sort of half worked for a bit, but now, since COVID, the whole thing's just gone bananas.